The night was quiet over the city. The tall glass tower of Novacorp stood like a giant in the middle of the skyline. Its lights glowed against the darkness, but inside, danger was waiting. A small fire had started on the lower floors, spreading fast through wires and vents. In minutes, smoke filled the air, alarms screamed, and panic broke out. David was there by chance. He was not rich, not important. He was a single father, a simple maintenance worker who lived paycheck to paycheck. Tonight he had stayed late fixing a broken circuit. His hands were strong, worn from years of hard work, but life had been cruel to him. Since the death of his wife, he had only one reason to live, his 10-year-old son waiting for him at home. As David prepared to leave, he smelled the smoke. People were already running down the stairs, shouting, crying, pushing each other in fear. But over the chaos, one sound cut deeper than all others. A scream, high-pitched, terrified, trapped. David's head snapped up. The sound came from the elevator shaft. He rushed forward, coughing through the smoke, and saw the impossible. The CEO's young daughter stuck inside a glass elevator. Flames licked the steel walls around her. The fire had melted parts of the shaft, jamming the doors. Sparks fell from the ceiling and the cables groaned under the heat. She was banging on the glass, eyes wide with horror. "Help me!" she screamed. The other workers froze. Some tried to pull her out, but the doors wouldn't move. Someone shouted, "It's no use. The fire's too strong." Another voice cried, "We need to wait for the fire department." But David didn't wait. He saw the fear on the girl's face. He saw how the flames were crawling closer every second. Waiting meant death. His heart pounded. His mind told him to run, to escape, to think of his son. But something inside him pushed harder. The voice of a father. He charged forward. The metal doors were glowing red from the heat. He grabbed the edges with his bare hands and pulled. The pain was instant. Flesh burned, skin tore. Smoke filled his lungs. His vision blurred, but he kept pulling. His teeth clenched, muscles shaking, every nerve screaming in agony. The girl cried louder. "Please, please!" David roared through the pain. He was no hero, no soldier, just a father who refused to let a child die. Inch by inch, the doors bent. His palms blistered. His skin peeled. Still, he did not stop. Finally, the gap was wide enough. The girl crawled through, her small body trembling, tears streaking her smoke-covered face. The moment she was free, the cables above snapped. The empty elevator dropped, crashing into flames below with a terrible explosion. The girl fell into David's arms. He collapsed to the ground, his hands blackened and smoking. The workers rushed forward, grabbing the girl, pulling David away from the fire. He could no longer feel his hands. His breath came in short, painful gasps. His body was weak, but his eyes stayed fixed on the child he had saved. She looked back at him, terrified yet grateful. For a second, their eyes locked, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. The alarms wailed. Sirens echoed outside as fire trucks arrived. But in that moment, inside the blazing tower, only one truth mattered. A simple man had done what no one else dared to do. David's vision darkened as he slipped into unconsciousness. The last sound he heard was the girl's voice whispering above the chaos. "Don't let them find me." The fire was out by morning. Smoke still curled from the broken windows of the Novacorp tower, drifting into the gray sky like ghosts of the night before. Fire trucks stood outside, flashing red lights against the glass walls. Reporters crowded the street, their cameras pointed upward, their voices sharp with questions. Who saved her? Was it an accident? Where was security? But David didn't hear any of it. He woke in the hospital, his body heavy, his throat raw from the smoke. His hands were wrapped in thick white bandages, but even through the layers, he felt the pain burning deep. When he tried to move his fingers, fire shot up his arms. A groan escaped his lips. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the monitor beside his bed. He turned his head and saw flowers on the table. Expensive ones. Orchids, roses, nothing a man like him could ever afford. A card leaned against the vase. In bold letters, one name stood out, Novacorp. David's chest tightened. The door opened softly and two people walked in. The first was the CEO himself, Marcus Hale. Everyone in the city knew his face. Tall, cold, powerful. A man whose smile never reached his eyes. He wore a black suit, perfect even in the early morning. Beside him was his daughter, the girl David had dragged from fire and smoke. She looked small in her oversized coat, her hair tied back in a messy braid. Her face was pale, her eyes red, but she was alive. "Mr. David," Marcus said, his voice smooth but heavy. You saved my daughter's life. Novacorp owes you a great debt. David tried to speak, but his throat was dry. The only sound he managed was a cough. Marcus raised his hand. No need to talk, rest. Your hospital bills are already covered. You'll want for nothing. He said the words easily, like money could fix everything. But David wasn't thinking of money. His mind was on his son waiting at home, wondering why his father hadn't come back last night. The girl stepped closer to the bed. She hesitated, then leaned near his ear. Her whisper was so soft only he could hear. They wanted me dead. David's eyes widened. He looked at her, but she stepped back quickly, her face blank as if nothing had been said. Marcus touched her shoulder. We'll leave you to rest, he said. But remember, Novacorp takes care of its own. The door closed behind them and silence returned. That night, David lay awake in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. The pain in his hands was unbearable, but the girl's words hurt more. They wanted me dead. Why? He tried to reason with himself. Maybe she was scared. Maybe it was the fire, the smoke, the shock. But deep inside, he knew she was telling the truth. There had been something strange about the fire, something unnatural about the way the elevator had failed. The next morning, the news exploded across the city. Worker saves heiress from tower fire. David's face was on every channel, though the pictures showed only a man on a stretcher, hands burned, skin blackened. To the world, he was a hero, but not everyone celebrated him. That evening, a nurse handed him a plain envelope. This was left for you, she said, frowning. Inside was a single piece of paper. No name, no address. Only words typed in red ink, stay silent. Or your son will pay. David's heart stopped. He gripped the letter with shaking hands. His son, his only family. Whoever had written this knew everything. Suddenly, he felt eyes on him. He looked toward the hallway. Through the glass wall of his room, a man in a black suit stood watching. The stranger didn't move, didn't smile, just stared, and then, as quickly as he had appeared, he walked away. David's breath came fast. The walls of the hospital felt like a trap. He wasn't safe here. His son wasn't safe at home. He looked at his bandaged hands, broken, useless. He could barely hold a spoon, let alone protect a child, but he had no choice. He had already stepped into something bigger than himself. The fire was only the beginning. The days after the fire felt like a blur. David was sent home from the hospital earlier than expected. The doctor said he needed rest, but in truth, Novacorp had arranged everything. Bills paid, papers signed, discharge rushed. At first, it felt like kindness. But the more David thought about it, the more it felt like control. His hands were still wrapped in bandages. He couldn't tie his shoes. Couldn't cook for his son, couldn't even button his shirt. His boy, Ethan, tried to help. Don't worry, Dad, Ethan said, his small voice brave. I'll take care of you. But David knew it should be the other way around. He was the father. He was supposed to protect Ethan, and yet the warning letter haunted him. Stay silent, or your son will pay. 2 nights later, David noticed the first shadow. He was walking back from the small grocery store near his apartment, Ethan at his side, carrying a bag of bread and milk. The street was quiet, but not empty. A man stood at the corner pretending to read a newspaper. He wore a black coat, and though his face was hidden, David felt the weight of his stare. When David slowed, the man lowered the paper. Their eyes met for only a second, but it was enough. The stranger turned, melted into the crowd, and vanished. David's heart pounded. His burned hands ached as he tightened his grip on Ethan's shoulder. Dad? What's wrong? Ethan asked. Nothing, David lied. But his mind whispered, they're watching us. The next day, something even stranger happened. A black car followed him. Not close enough to be obvious, but always there. At the grocery store. At the pharmacy. At Ethan's school. Every time David looked back, the car rolled away, disappearing around the corner. That night, David sat at the kitchen table, staring at his useless hands. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, peeling paint, but it was home. And now it felt like a cage. He heard Ethan humming in the bedroom, playing with toy soldiers. That sound was the only thing keeping him steady. But then his phone buzzed, a message, no number. Just words, do not speak to reporters. Do not speak to police. Do not speak to her again. David's throat went dry. The CEO's daughter. Later, he turned on the television. A news anchor was speaking about the fire. They called it an electrical accident. They praised NovaCorp's safety systems for preventing further damage. Not a word about sabotage. Not a word about the truth, and not a word about David. The hero of the fire was already being erased. But as the report ended, a new headline flashed. CEO's daughter absent from public appearances. David leaned forward. He knew why. She was hiding, maybe even from her own father. And she had told him the truth. They wanted me dead. That same evening, a knock echoed at his door. David froze. No one visited him this late. Slowly, he opened the door. No one was there. Only a small package lay on the floor. He brought it inside and opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a phone, new, unmarked. It buzzed the moment he touched it. He answered. A soft voice spoke, urgent, almost shaking. "Mr. David, it's me. Don't hang up." It was her, the CEO's daughter. "They're listening to everything," she whispered. "Your phone, your apartment, maybe even your friends. Don't trust anyone." David swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" "They want you silent. And if silence is not enough, they'll take your son." His stomach turned to ice. He looked toward the bedroom where Ethan was still humming, unaware of the danger surrounding them. The girl continued. "I can't explain everything now. But listen, the fire was no accident. The elevator wasn't supposed to hold me. It was supposed to kill me. And you—" Her voice broke. "You weren't supposed to survive either." David gripped the phone tighter, his burned hands throbbing. "Why me?" "You'll understand soon," she whispered. "But right now you need to keep your son close. Watch the shadows. They've already chosen you." The line went dead. David sat frozen in the dark room, the phone still in his hand. Shadows moved across the window as a car drove by outside. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the refrigerator felt like a threat. He thought of Ethan, thought of the girl's warning, thought of the black car that never stopped following. His life had already changed in the fire, but now the fire was following him home. And in the shadows, something was waiting. The city never truly slept, but that night it felt colder, quieter. David sat awake on the couch, the strange phone still on the table before him. His son Ethan was asleep in the next room, hugging a toy soldier tight. David's burned hands throbbed under their bandages. He stared at them, remembering the girl's voice in his ear. "They wanted me dead, and you weren't supposed to survive either." Those words would not leave his head. The next morning, David tried to carry on with routine. He walked Ethan to school, forcing a smile, but his eyes searched every corner, every alley, every car mirror. The black car was gone now, but the silence felt worse, like predators hiding in tall grass, waiting for him to lower his guard. When he returned home, he found something unexpected. His apartment door was unlocked. He froze. He knew he had locked it. Slowly, he pushed the door open. His heart raced. Inside, sitting calmly at his kitchen table, was the CEO's daughter. Her coat was dirty, her face pale, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. She looked nothing like the smiling pictures the world knew from magazines. "This was a girl running for her life. Don't scream," she said, her voice low, steady. "If you call anyone, they'll find me. And if they find me, they'll kill me. Just like they tried in that elevator." David's first thought was Ethan. "You can't be here. My son," she cut him off. "Your son is the reason I came. If you don't understand what's happening, both of you will die." David closed the door, his pulse hammering. "Tell me everything," he demanded, his voice rough. The girl looked at him, her hands trembling slightly. "My name is Liana. My father, Marcus Hale. He runs NovaCorp. But what the world doesn't know is what NovaCorp is really building." David frowned. "Weapons?" She nodded. "Not just weapons, machines, artificial minds. Programs that can think, learn, and control. They call it Project Helios. It's not just about money, it's about power. If they finish it, NovaCorp won't just sell weapons. They'll control governments, economies, even armies." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And I found out too much." David felt a chill crawl across his skin. "So they tried to kill you," she nodded. "The elevator fire wasn't an accident. The system was reprogrammed. I was locked inside. No way out. But then you broke the plan." David's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "You weren't supposed to be there," she said. "The fire was timed. Security was told to stand down. They thought no one would notice. They thought I would die quietly. But you—" Her eyes searched his bandaged hands. You ruined it, and now they don't just want me dead. They want you silent. David paced, his mind spinning. Why me? I'm just a worker. I don't matter, but Liana shook her head. You matter more than you think. What are you talking about? She hesitated, biting her lip. When you pulled me from that elevator, you weren't just saving me. The fire burned you, yes, but something else happened. I saw it, your skin, it didn't burn like normal. The doctors noticed too. They said nothing, but they know. You're different. David stared at her, stunned. Different? My hands are ruined. They're ruined on the outside, she whispered. But inside, you survived something no one should survive. Do you understand what that means? You're connected to Helios. Somehow you are part of it. And that's why they can't let you live. Silence hung heavy in the room. David thought of his son. Of the black car. Of the letter threatening Ethan's life. He had wanted to believe this was all just fear, paranoia. But now, sitting across from this girl, hearing the truth in her trembling voice, he realized this was real. Deadly real. They won't stop, Liana said. Not until I'm gone. Not until you're gone. But if we work together, we can expose them. We can stop Helios before it spreads. David shook his head. I can't fight NovaCorp. I'm just one man. I have a son to protect, her eyes softened. That's exactly why you can fight. Because you know what it means to lose everything. And because they've already chosen you. A noise outside cut the moment short. A car door slammed. Voices murmured. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hall. Liana's face went pale. They found me. David's heart raced. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the back window. Move. Ethan's toy soldier sat forgotten on the table as shadows fell across the front door. The lock clicked, and the door began to open. The door burst open. Two men in black suits stormed into the apartment, their movements sharp, trained like soldiers. David's burned hands throbbed as he grabbed Liana and pulled her toward the window. Go, he shouted. She hesitated only a second before climbing out onto the fire escape. David followed, his bandaged hands slipping on the metal rails, pain shooting through him with every movement. Behind them, the men shouted orders. Boots pounded against the floor. Don't let them escape. David and Liana scrambled down the iron steps. A gunshot cracked the night. Sparks flew from the railing where a bullet struck inches from David's head. Ethan's face flashed in his mind. He had to survive for his boy. They reached the ground, running into the dark alley. A black car screeched to a stop at the other end. Doors flew open. More men stepped out. They were trapped. David's heart pounded. His body screamed with pain, but something deeper inside him awoke. He shoved Liana behind him. His voice was low, steady. Stay down. The men advanced. One raised a weapon, sleek and strange, not like a normal gun. A thin barrel glowed blue at the tip. David recognized it instantly. Not military. Not police. NovaCorp tech. The man fired. The blast hit the wall near David, burning a hole straight through the brick. Smoke hissed. Liana gasped. David's instincts took over. He grabbed a loose trash can lid from the ground and swung it like a shield. Another blue blast hit, bouncing off with a flash of light. Sparks danced across his arms, but instead of falling, he felt something strange, like the energy had passed into him. Through him. The men stopped, confused. One of them muttered, "It's him. He's already reacting." David didn't understand, but he didn't have time to ask questions. He rushed forward, slamming the lid into the closest man. The force sent the attacker crashing into the car door. Shock flickered across the others' faces. This burned, broken man was fighting like something more. "Run!" David shouted at Liana. She obeyed, sprinting down the alley. David followed, weaving between shadows, the men close behind. They reached the street. Cars honked, lights flashed. Pedestrians screamed as the chase spilled into public view. David and Liana darted across, nearly hit by a speeding taxi. The black-suited men didn't care. They chased openly, their strange weapons hidden but ready. David grabbed Liana's arm. "We can't go home. They know where I live. They know everything." She nodded, fear sharp in her eyes. "Then there's only one place we can go." "Where?" "My mother's old safe house. Before she died, she kept secrets from my father. Records, files. If they're still there, they'll prove what NovaCorp is doing." David didn't trust anyone, not CEOs, not their families, but right now he had no choice. As they made their way through the city, David felt the weight of unseen eyes everywhere. Drones hovered in the sky, small, silent, disguised as delivery bots. But their lenses turned too smoothly, always following him. One swooped low, scanning with a red beam. David felt the light burn across his skin. His hands tingled beneath the bandages, glowing faintly where the fire had scarred them. The drone paused, beeped, then shot upward into the clouds. Liana stared at him. Do you see it? It reacts to you. You're part of this. David shook his head. I'm no part of anything. But inside he wasn't so sure. That night they reached the safe house. It was hidden behind an old bookstore on the edge of the city. Dust coated the shelves and the windows were covered with thick wooden planks. Inside, papers were scattered, files yellowed with age. Liana moved quickly, searching drawers, flipping through folders. She kept everything here. Proof of the experiments. Proof of Helios. David paced, restless. His instincts screamed danger. Hurry. Finally, Liana froze. She pulled out a small black drive. Her hands shook as she held it up. This is it. The backup. If we can unlock this, the world will know the truth. Before David could answer, the sound of rotors filled the air. They both looked up. Through the cracks in the boarded windows, a swarm of drones hovered outside, red eyes glowing in the dark. Their wings buzzed like angry wasps. Then, one by one, the boards began to burn away under blue beams of light. They had been found. The bookstore safe house shook as the drones cut through the wooden boards, their blue beams slicing the dark like blades. David pushed Liana behind a shelf, grabbing the nearest piece of broken metal pipe. His burned hands flared with pain, but the strange tingling grew stronger, pulsing under his skin like fire trapped in his veins. The first drone burst through. It shrieked, its glowing red lens locking on him. A beam shot out, sizzling toward his chest. David raised the pipe without thinking. The blast struck it, and instead of tearing the metal apart, the energy flowed through the pipe, down his arms and into him. His vision flashed white. His body shook, but he stayed standing. The drone fell, smoking as if drained. Liana stared at him wide-eyed. You absorbed it. Just like before. David dropped the pipe, his chest heaving. He didn't understand. He was just a man, a father, a worker, nothing more, but the fire, the drones, his survival. It was too much to be an accident. The remaining drones circled outside, but they didn't enter. They hovered, watching like predators waiting for orders. Then, almost as quickly as they had come, they pulled back into the sky, vanishing into the night. David frowned. Why would they leave? Liana's voice trembled. Because they don't need to kill you. Not yet, they're testing you. They want to see what you can do. When the silence settled, Liana connected the black drive to an old terminal in the safe house. The screen flickered to life, lines of code racing across it. What is that thing? David asked, pacing like a caged wolf. It's a backup my mother kept. She used to work inside Helios. She knew what my father was doing. She tried to stop him. Liana's eyes filled with both fear and pride. And she hid everything here. The files opened, videos, reports, medical records. David leaned closer, his throat tight. The first file showed a military hospital room. Men in uniforms moved around a metal bed. On the bed lay a soldier, young, broken, burned. His chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. The camera zoomed in. David froze. It was him. Years younger. His face bruised, his skin torn, but it was him. No. His knees weakened. This isn't real, Liana whispered. It is. You were part of Project Helios. Not by choice. By design. The screen showed charts. Genetic modifications, experimental nanotech treatments, secret trials labeled only with numbers. Words appeared. Subject 07, accelerated recovery. Energy adaptation classified. David's head spun. He remembered pieces now, the war, the explosion that almost killed him. Waking up in a hospital, doctors saying he was lucky to be alive. He thought he had just healed. He thought it was fate, but it wasn't luck, it was Novacorp. They had rebuilt him. Not to save his life, but to turn him into a weapon. David staggered back, breathing hard. All this time, I thought I quit the army because I couldn't take it anymore. I thought I walked away. But it was them. They made me into this. His burned hands glowed faintly through the bandages as if the fire had only awakened what was hidden. Liana looked at him with a mix of fear and hope. Don't you see? That's why you survived the elevator fire. That's why you can absorb their weapons. You are proof that Helios isn't just a program. It's inside people now. It's inside you. David slammed his fist against the wall, anger shaking him. And they never told me. They used me. And now they want to erase me. Suddenly the terminal beeped. Another file opened by itself. A video message. The screen showed Marcus Hale, the CEO, Liana's father. His cold eyes stared straight at them. "If you're watching this," Marcus said, "then my daughter has betrayed me. And you, Subject 07? You've learned the truth." David's stomach twisted. He wasn't a name. He was a number. Marcus continued. "You were meant to die in that fire. A final test. A clean ending. But you survived, which means your purpose is not finished. You are the last piece of Helios. And soon you'll understand resistance is pointless." The video ended, the screen went black. David's body shook with rage. He had been a soldier, a husband, a father, and all along he had been someone's experiment. His whole life rewritten without his knowing. Liana touched his arm gently. "I'm sorry. I wish I didn't drag you into this." But David's eyes burned with new fire. "No," he said, his voice low, steady. "This isn't just about me anymore. They threatened my son. They want me gone. They want you dead. If Helios is real, if I'm proof of it, then we can destroy them." Outside, the hum of engines grew louder. Light swept across the windows. Liana whispered, "They're here." David clenched his fists, the glow spreading brighter beneath the bandages. For the first time, he didn't feel broken. He felt ready. The shadows closed in again, but this time David was no longer running. Engines roared outside the safe house. Red lights swept across the dusty windows, crawling like claws. Heavy boots struck the ground in rhythm, soldiers moving into position. David's breath slowed, steady, as if instinct had taken over. His burned hands pulsed faintly with light, the bandages glowing against the shadows. Liana crouched behind him, clutching the black drive like her life depended on it. "They won't stop," she whispered. David's jaw tightened. "Neither will I." The front door cracked under a heavy boot. Splinters scattered across the floor. Men in black armor stormed inside, weapons raised, sleek Novacorp rifles humming with blue energy. David moved first. He didn't think, didn't plan. His body remembered what his mind didn't. He grabbed the nearest shelf and shoved it forward, blocking the first shot. The beam hit wood, but instead of burning through, the glow traveled along his arms. His veins lit like fire beneath his skin. He roared, charging. His fist struck the soldier's chest plate, sending the man flying across the room like a rag doll. Liana's eyes widened. "You're not just surviving, you're fighting them with their own power." More soldiers poured in. Blue beams filled the air, slicing through bookshelves, burning holes in the walls. David ducked, rolled, slammed another man against the floor. Every blast that touched him made him stronger, his body absorbing the energy, feeding the fire inside him. But he wasn't invincible. His muscles screamed, his body trembling from the overload. For every soldier he knocked down, 2 more appeared. "David!" Liana shouted. "We can't win here. We need to run." She pulled him toward the back door. Together they burst into the night, sprinting down the alley as drones swarmed above. Their red lenses glowed, beams sweeping the ground like hunting dogs. They ran until their lungs burned. Finally, they ducked into an abandoned train tunnel, dark and damp. David leaned against the wall, sweat dripping down his face, his hands glowing faintly under the bandages. Liana clutched the drive tight. "We still have it. If we can reach someone outside the city, journalists, the military, someone will listen." David shook his head. "They'll kill anyone who tries. Novacorp owns everything here." "Not everything," she said firmly. "They don't own you. They don't own your son." At her words, David's chest tightened. Ethan, he hadn't seen his boy since the hospital. His heart ached at the thought of him alone, waiting, unaware of the storm about to crash down. He stood, eyes sharp. "Then we get Ethan, and we don't stop running." But before they could move, a faint buzz filled the tunnel. David froze. From the darkness ahead, a red dot appeared on the wall. Then another. Then 5 more. Drones glided silently into the tunnel, blocking their escape. From behind, more footsteps echoed, soldiers entering from the other side. They were surrounded. David pulled Liana behind him, fists clenched, the glow in his hands burning brighter than ever. His voice was steady, unshaken. "They want a weapon," he said. "Then they'll get one." The drones lowered, charging their beams. The soldiers raised their rifles, and then, before the first shot fired, a new voice cut through the tunnel. Cold, sharp, familiar. "Stand down." David's heart stopped. He knew that voice. From the shadows stepped Marcus Hale, the CEO of NovaCorp. His suit was untouched by dirt, his expression calm, almost amused. Soldiers lowered their weapons at his command. The drones hovered in silence. Liana gasped. "Father." Marcus's eyes flicked to her, then to David. His lips curved into a small smile. "You've done well, Subject 07, he said. "Better than I expected. The fire proved your strength. Tonight proved your control. You see now, don't you? You are Helios." David's body shook with rage. "I'm not your weapon." Marcus stepped closer, unafraid. "You don't have a choice. Your blood is the blueprint. Your son, he carries it too." David froze. His pulse thundered in his ears. "What did you say?" Marcus's smile widened. "Did you really think it ended with you?" "No, David, your boy is the future. And soon he will be mine," Liana screamed. "No!" But the soldiers dragged her back. David's roar shook the tunnel, his hands blazing with light brighter than ever before. But as he lunged forward, the drones unleashed their beams all at once. The tunnel exploded with blinding light. The screen went black.